Good morning, everyone. One of the things we want to do this morning is give all of you an opportunity to show some of your works. And we're going to give Doreen the opportunity to comment on them and help you along your way and give you more insights.
Okay, great. So Ella, since you're the first one, if you're there, tell me what's going on here.
Hi. So I'm personally working on a watercolor piece of the goddess Aphrodite. I really like painting like gods and goddesses and things from mythical, like myths and everything. So I'm kind of like basing her design off of the design that was used in The Birth of Venus, because that's like one of my favorite paintings ever. So I've just kind of been working through like putting like design elements and everything in there, like symbols of her, and then the bottom right hand is like the final, not the final piece, but like the final design that I kind of came up with.
Ella, I like that. That's fun. I like mythology myself. Mythology is such a great and wide subject, and The Birth of Venus is a great painting. Do you like Botticelli's work?
He's one of my favorite artists, like ever. Like whenever I have to put like anything that's like, oh, what's your favorite artist, or who are your biggest inspirations, I always put Botticelli. He's like the first one that I always put down.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, so tell me why.
I just love his use of color, honestly. I think his use of color and like the pastel kind of tones that he uses, and then just the way that he can portray movement in his pieces is just like beautiful. He's definitely like one of my like biggest inspirations.
That's fun. So I would suggest if you like him, at this point, maybe do a bunch of copies of his paintings. In the way you're doing right here in your sketchbook, to do some drawings of him, and right now it seems like you're focusing on the head, and so I would work on that. The head is the most challenging part of the figure, but proportions and that would come next. And but I would suggest, if you like him that much, two things. First is to copy some of his paintings and drawings if you can find them. And then maybe read a little bit about the time period, because he exists. So here's the reason why you'd want to read a little bit about the time period, what's going on in art history, and why it appeals to you now. So because Botticelli and his work is very different than the kind of modern, postmodern artwork that's done today. And for your sensibilities, just sort of trying to discover why you like what's going on with his work at that time period in history, and not 100 or 500 years earlier, or 200 years later, and then help yourself understand what's appealing about that.
Yeah,
Anyhow. Yeah, go ahead.
I actually did do a master copy last year, I think, for my painting class. I did like a master copy of like just Aphrodite's face in The Birth of Venus.
Oh, cool.
That was really fun.
Yeah, but I think like what I'm suggesting to you, because the master copy is great, so that's wonderful. It takes a long time to do, but I'm suggesting like you just do quick sketches, like maybe like you spend 20 minutes on copying his figure, or several figures in a painting. And the painting that he did that's spring, or any of his paintings, just copy those figures, because there's something about the quality of his line, and then even what you're doing here with the colors. But if you look at his colors and you get that color scheme, something will, if you do a number of them, and not so much a master copy, but if you just do like 20-minute studies that are not perfect, that you're like, oh, he does that line again and again and again. That's how his line is different than this other artist that I like. And it'll just put something you'll start building a mental vocabulary of line and things that appeal to you. And it's very different than, say, the line that appears in like anime or comic book stuff, or different, you know. So, and then the same with the colors. You know, those colors are very different than the kind of colors that happen in painting 200 years into the future, you know, from that period, from that time period, or even like during the Impressionist period. So like you just put down dabs of color and you think, oh, look at that. He's using this color scheme again and again and again. Huh, why do I like that? And just ask yourself questions and try and come up with answers. So, Roger, are you trying to say something? Oh, I just heard little blip, blip, blip.
Dorian,
yeah.
Watch the chat, because we'll put notes in there, because we're not trusting audio just now. So if we want to communicate with you, we'll be sure to put something in the chat.
Okay, is my audio coming in fine?
Perfect on my end.
Okay, good. So, and I don't see any chat here, so
right. So we'll just go ahead to the next slide.
Okay.
And that's great. So I think this is working.
Yeah. Okay.
So Juliana, say hi.
Hello.
Hey, Juliana. So same deal. This is kind of cool. Wow. Tell me what's going on here.
So my AP series is on mental health awareness, and this is kind of like a painting of like personal experience. So yeah, it's just like feelings I felt throughout my life, I guess.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So are you familiar with the psychologist Carl Jung?
I'm not.
Okay, well, so that might be a guy that you write down and maybe want to look up. A lot of our current conversation about mental health or psychology, or the concept of the unconscious, hidden motivations, why you think you're doing what you're doing. Well, so even the idea, excuse me? Hello? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Just the audio goes weird every once in a while, so it makes it sound like somebody's talking. So anyhow, he was also an artist. So he's a psychologist, and he did some painting, and it's pretty far out there, but it's worth looking into. And just reading, even if you just read a little bit about it, I think you'll find it like super interesting. In any case, so this has something to do with the feelings that you've been experiencing. Please forgive me, and I'm not criticizing at all. I don't know, so I'm just going to ask some questions. It's so interesting to me. The tattoos or the paint or what's going on in tell me a little bit more, please.
So the painting is like clown paint that's like running or smudged. It's just to, I guess, represent how I kind of feel like a mess sometimes, or I feel like a joke, and it's just kind of like a personal feeling of not feeling like belonging or anything like that. So it's just kind of like representational of that.
Yeah. That's interesting. So it's sort of like a clown that's not all really that happy. Like
yeah.
Clown. Okay, that makes sense. That's me. That's really interesting. I like how you're developing things from your sketch to the finish. And then tell me about these drawings on the right side of the page with the cyclops.
So
Yeah.
so the one with all the eyes is a painting of hyperfixation, which is actually something that I also deal with. I ended up painting that oval canvas with like all the eyes on it.
Okay.
I just felt like it represented it better than a giant eye on a face. So yeah, I just wanted to represent how it's really hard to look away from something and you focus all of your attention on one thing. It's hard to break away from that.
These are really interesting concepts. I think that with your interest in that, there's another person I want to recommend that you might like a lot. Is she worked with Carl Jung and spoke a lot about connecting ideas and psychology in art. And her name is Marie Louise von Franz. That's a long name, but she wrote a book called, oh gosh, The Archetype and Feminine Archetypes. Oh golly, I don't remember off the top of my head, but look her up, Marie Louise von Franz, and spend about an hour reading, and I think you'll find that there's a lot in there that you're connecting with, and it'll give you ideas for your own painting. But somebody who's thought about a lot of the similar thoughts that you have, and how it applies to art, and how it's been used in art, and storytelling, and yeah, I think it'll be interesting for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Another guy to look at is Joseph Campbell, but I might mention him a bunch of times. And Joseph Campbell combines a lot of things and mythology, and that would be good for Emma too. But for you in particular, because you're on the whole symbolism and using visual symbols to describe your psychology and what's going on. Yeah, I think that might be fun.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Do you have any questions for me? Because I'm just talking here, but is there anything that you have a question for me about, like what, in some way that you think I might be able to help you or answer something?
I think my biggest issue with like art in general is just like finding inspiration and coming up with ideas, and I don't know if you have any like tips on how to find ideas better.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I should have started with that. I'm so sorry, but all right. So, related to that, and ideas don't happen, and you might have found this already. So I'm going to say this, and you'll probably all think, well, yeah, that's kind of the experience that we all have. When you sit down to draw or do something or write, or you're like, okay, now I'm going to do whatever, I'm going to play music or whatever, your mind goes blank. So, but when you're taking a shower, you're doing something, all of a sudden, taking a walk, or you're doing something else, you have the greatest idea that you've ever had, and it's not the right time. You're driving with your mom or your dad in the car, and you're thinking like, oh my God, like, why now? I have this great idea. You're talking with friends. So that's what your sketchbook is for too. And often what I'll do is I'll just write a little sticky note and stick it in my sketchbook, or I fold up pieces of paper, like computer paper. And so I just write it down quickly. I have paper all over the place, in the car, by the side of the bed, in the bathroom. So you're taking a shower and it comes, it's like, oh, for God's sakes. I used to have a little board that you could sort of hang in the shower, so I could write things down in the shower, because like ideas come to you when you're least expecting them. So then when you sit down to the write, when you sit down to draw, if you know, when you do that, then you'll have a whole list of ideas that kind of are that you've captured, and then you can sort of, you're like, oh yeah, that idea. Oh yeah, that idea, and you can develop them further. So this happens to me every morning when I'm reading. Not every morning, but it happens every once in a while. I get some great idea based on a conversation I had the night previously, or some experience or something, and I think, oh, I'm studying now. But I have a little book where I sort of write down notes, and so I just capture that idea, and then I go back to study. So anyhow, that's one suggestion. But then, there are other places for Instagram, and then there's other websites that have artwork that you like, and make a folder and put some stuff in there, make a list of artists that you like, and try and ask yourself why you like them. The same thing I was saying to Emma. Ask yourself why you like them, and what you think about the world. This is a good thing. And I know I'm spending a lot of time on here, so I'm hoping that we can get through everybody. But ask when you're thinking about the things that trouble you, or the things that you like, ask yourself what being is in the world. And that's a big question. It seems like a little bit simple, but if you ask yourself what you think the world is like, if it's a happy place, a benevolent universe where things can happen for you, and then that might dictate some ideas of how you want to make art. If, on the other hand, the world is a dangerous place, and it's a malevolent place, and it's a scary place, and it's a messy place, that might dictate some other ideas. And maybe you could explore both areas and look at the artwork and see what kind of artwork resonates with you, and you feel is the kind of artwork that you'd like to put into the world. So, okay, maybe we'll go on to the next slide. Emma, tell me about it.
All right, so you can just speak, and I think it should work out.
Hi.
Hiya, Emma. So tell me about what's going on here.
In these sketches, you can't really see it, but I was kind of experimenting with depicting like feminine intimacy in these images, and like in some of my other sketches that aren't here, there's a lot of like symbolism used, like different floral arrangements that like each type of flower has like a specific meaning, and like just like what it adds to the painting.
That's fun. That's interesting. Yeah, so maybe I'll start from where I ended off last time, because that's good. That's probably a better way to move forward. If there's something that I could help you with, and if you could ask me a question, what would it be?
Which arrangement do you find the most interesting visually?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, so the one I'm able to see most easily is the one on the right, but I mean, it's just because it's the biggest. So, I mean, that helps only, golly, I'm like on my computer here, that it's about 2 inches. So It's just, the smaller figures are just a little bit more challenging for me to see. But I like what you're doing. Here's my suggestion. I think you should use a little bit more reference. I think doing the intimacy thing with two people is really challenging in a good way. Like I've drawn that myself, and I remember the first time I started trying to draw that from my imagination, I was like, this is much harder than I thought it would be. Like just relating two figures together, everything gets like cattywampus. It just like it looks weird. I can get one figure right, and then I couldn't get the other figure to work properly. So anyhow, one thing I'm thinking is that you could work with reference a little bit more, and then when you're doing that, that another thing might be to find the overall shape that the two figures, how they fit together and as one. So kind of like a puzzle piece. So then on that right side again, you have like this one figure kind of hugging the other figure from the left, from behind. Anyhow, it's and I would like to see the drawing like worked out a little bit more cleanly, but it's fine because it's a sketch, and I would just say do a lot of sketches. Do a lot. Just draw more. Draw a lot more, and you'll start to. I mean, that's my suggestion. And it's not that it's bad. It's just that I like what you're doing, and I'd like to see a lot more. So anyhow, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. All right. Hang on. Let me see if I can. All right, Abby, this is fun. Tell me what you're doing here.
Hi, so I've been working on a still life, and these are some sketches from it. For my AP series, my focus has been strangers. So this is the last piece in my series, and it was focusing on how objects can tell the story of a person.
And that's interesting. Tell me that thing again about the stranger.
Yeah, so my whole AP series is based around the concept of like strangers and what makes a person a stranger. So this is trying to show that concept through objects instead of through people.
Oh, interesting. Do you know Albert Camus at all? And his book?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's interesting. Well, so I like what you're doing. The way you've composed your lamp here, and then made it like the other ones are that head that you have. It looks like a mask or something. You're drawing really nicely. So I guess I would, I like the way you're doing things. If you could ask me a question, like that in some way that you think that I might have something that can help you, what might that question be?
I suppose maybe something with sketchbook work. That's something I've always struggled with like planning and getting things down in a nice way before going on to the final painting. If you have any tips for like streamlining that process, I suppose, or making it better.
That's really interesting. I'm so glad I'm asking this question of you all, because you're all like asking me things that I hadn't even seen. Is this another? No, that's something different. We just jumped to another slide. Hey, Roger, can you go back to the previous slide, please? Okay. Oh, I see. So that's one, and then go. I'm sorry, it's the same person, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. You're telling me that you're having trouble with your organizing in your sketchbook, and actually, I think it's pretty darn organized. So I also like your color study. So what are you having trouble with then, that you're saying that you don't feel it's organized enough?
I suppose just like the interest in the sketchbook work, like it always feels like a bit more of a chore than like, you know, something that's like a part of the actual painting process. So I suppose more like a mental organization.
I see. So, all right, I'm going to say something and then you tell me if I'm right about this, because it sounds to me a little bit like my girlfriend. And so girlfriend's name is Kelly, and she likes working on painting. She's also an artist. She hates doing sketches. She says that to her, like when she's doing sketches, it just feels like a waste of time. And if she works too much on a sketch, by the time she gets to the painting, she's kind of not really interested anymore. It's like she's worked through the idea and she just wants to dive into the painting. And is that the feeling that you're having?
Yeah, I think that sounds pretty similar. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so then, all right, there are two ways to think about this, or maybe more. Probably there are more. The kind of sketching that you're doing, you're working out a lot of the details, and that works for something where you want a predictable result. And if you're okay planning things so that you can get to a predictable result. So say, for example, illustration. And illustration, like the practice of that is that you might do a sketch like you're doing, then you might do a color study, and so that you can end up with a predictable result for some kind of product, whatever it is. And you know, in between that, it's so that you're communicating with somebody else. Like say, if I'm the art director and I'm looking at this and, you know, I'm like, oh, okay, I kind of see where you're going. I see the ideas. We can talk to each other, and I know like what the finished painting is going to be like. And so all these little sketches act for both of us in this context to understand like that when you put whatever it is, 2 weeks or a month into the final painting, I'm confident based on your previous work that, you know, I know where you're going and I can kind of see the palette and I understand, and it's like, great. So that's one way of thinking about all these sketches. Another way is if you're like, that kind of preparatory work and that kind of communication and that kind of vision for what you want to do with your work is not what you want to be doing. Like, it's like, oh my God, that sounds like a nightmare. I want to be making art, and I don't want to be like solving somebody else's problems about stories that are not even my own stories. Like what, you know, and there's some people are fine like that. You know, I have friends that are illustrators and they're like, I don't really have stories of my own that I want to solve. I'm happy solving problems for other people, and I get paid, and it's like good for that. You know, give me another job and it's totally different and I'll solve that problem too. And they like working on sketches, and they like, you know, but maybe that's not you. So the second way of thinking is that you can work directly from life or directly from your imagination. And so the part of working from life can be more spontaneous, can be more direct. Like there's an aspect of like what I'm doing or what other people do, that they see something in the world that they like, or they have ideas and they hire models, or they take photographs, or whatever, or they draw from imagination, and it's just much more spontaneous. Whatever comes out, comes out. And it can be realistic, it can be semi-realistic, you know, whatever it is, and maybe that kind of thing. And it's more of their own personal engagement with the world. And they don't have to be communicating with an art director or whatever. Like they end up trying to create a work of art that they feel good about and then sell it. And it's not like illustration, and it's not like work for hire, in that like the illustration, 9 times out of 10, the job goes well and you get paid. You're hired to do a job, you put in your hours, and you get paid. This other way of doing things, you can do the work that you love to do and make it spontaneous. You could plan it. You don't have to plan it. You engage it the way you want to engage it, but you might not sell it. And so that requires a different kind of planning, like where you have to market and do all that stuff. But those are 2 ways that I can think of that you might think about the process of making art. And if you're really, maybe experiment with both. I mean, you're obviously planning things to make your final painting, and then think about like which one sounds like you'd have more fun. Experiment with both, and then, ultimately with your artwork, eventually you'll have to like make some money. So, there's no, if the illustration thing and working with people sounds more interesting to you, and that, gives you a sense of security, like where you'll get a job and then get paid, then you'll have to compromise, and you'll have to do sketches, and you'll have to figure out a way to do it that you actually like. So, does that help, Abby?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, great. Jackie, I like what you're doing, these sketches and preparatory work. Wow, this is some good stuff. You know what you're doing here, and you're painting and your color palette. This is pretty impressive. Tell me more.
Thanks. So this is a like cove. I don't really know how to describe this beach area, but we were in Hawaii, and I got this picture, and it was just so gorgeous that I felt like I needed to paint it. And I've always been really in love with like landscapes and just like nature, and painting that. It just gives me so much joy. So I just really wanted to make this a reality. And I'm working on the values right now, and I'm starting into the final today.
Wow, I got to tell you, I'm very impressed with this. There's a lot of professionals that that line things up in the way you're lining them up, and plan things out in this way. I don't know what all the notes are on the side, and I don't need to know, but if you feel like sharing with me what they are, and then there's these like on the left-hand side, there's circular things, and it just looks really interesting.
Yeah, so the first one on the side, I was looking at different pictures I'd taken in Hawaii because I wasn't sure. I took a bunch of good ones. The first ones are like actually giant lily pads, and I was considering painting those too. So I was just sketching a bunch of different things, and like, what do I like, what do I dislike about these things? And then when I got into the right-hand side, I was taking notes from this book that I was borrowing from the art room called Color and Light. So I was taking notes on how to like paint planes, and like, I'm trying to remember what that is. I think it was just like, I don't remember what those notes specifically were, but the ones next to it, which isn't shown, is like, I was looking at like, it was like how to pre-mix and things like that. Cause I never really pre-mixed my palettes, but I was taking notes on like the difference between pre-mixing and just kind of like mixing as you go along. So yeah, I've just been trying to like do a lot of pre-planning on this because I'm painting it like bigger than I've ever painted it. So I'm just like trying to make sure I have everything solid in my sketchbook. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I'm just really, really impressed with what you have here. The pre-mixing versus an open palette, and then how large is the painting that you're doing?
It's 3 by 2 feet.
That's pretty big.
Yeah.
And is it oil or acrylic?
It's an oil.
Okay. Well, that helps too. And then the book that you're using, the Color and Light book that you're reading, is that James Gurney?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you follow like his blog at all, or get his emails, or?
I don't, but I don't know if I follow him on Instagram, but like I have like seen some of his stuff before.
Yeah. Okay. So
really like paintings.
Yeah, I think you. I mean, if you really like landscape and you like nature and you like this, type of thing. I would suggest you follow him and his YouTube channel, or just get on his YouTube channel. He's got some super inexpensive, like really inexpensive tutorials that are short. They're like an hour or something, and you can learn so much from him. He's a font of knowledge. It'll really help take you to the next level. I mean, I think his videos are like $15 or $10. It's affordable to anybody, and worth it for sure. And he's painting in watercolor in a little sketchbook, very small. A lot of his videos are for free on YouTube. I think I would highly recommend that you spend some time looking at his stuff and seeing what he's doing, and then doing more of it. You're really good, and looking up more landscape painting, if landscape artists, if you like that. Do you know the Plein Air magazine?
I don't, but I do I follow a plein air hashtag on Instagram, so I'm always getting tons of plein air from different artists on my feed.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, that's good. And then there's a magazine called Plein Air Artist or something. I'm not a plein air artist, so I mean, I like painting outdoors and I like painting from life, but I don't even subscribe to the magazine. But I think it's because you like that. They have events. It'll turn you on to other professionals in the field that are doing the kind of work that it seems like you're already liking very much and doing. And you can dive in and you'll be able to follow more people on Instagram. You're like, oh golly, I like that. Some of them are really tight, where every little leaf is indicated, and that's a little bit more photographic. And then some of them are loose and more colorful, and yeah. What else? Color. Okay, here's my last two things, because I think I want to talk to you forever. It's like I really like what you're doing here. Take a look at the Impressionists, which I'm sure you have already. There's something that they're doing with color, and it's intentional. And then, so I'm going to suggest maybe read a little bit of art history and the relationship to realism and color, and when color goes to the fauves and why, and then what it was like previously in a more academic setting, and then try and figure out your relationship to color and realism and shape. These are all these things that I'm saying to you, I would suggest are the next steps for you to understand why you're doing what you're doing, and just take your stuff further. Good stuff, Jackie. Yeah, really good stuff. I'm very impressed. All right, Tamara. This is fun, Tamara. Oh my God, this is really fun. I wish I could see this larger. Collie, this is really fun. Tell me about it.
So I'm doing a comic that's sort of in a subtle noir style, but it's kind of a little bit on because most noir artists, it's very realistic, and I'm not going as realistic as that, but it's centered around the spy mission, and the first episode that I'll be illustrating is about receiving the mission and learning about the villain.
Oh, this is so much fun. All right, I'm gonna name it a modern day artist, and I wonder if you know her, because she does some noir stuff. Vanessa Del Rey. Do you know her?
She sounds familiar, but
Oh, write it down. She's fantastic. She's really good. And you know, so and then there's a guy whose work. Well, there's a couple of guys who I think you might like. Scott McCloud has done a book on making comics. Do you know that book?
I believe I do know Scott McCloud, but I don't know the book.
Okay, well, that's a book you want to buy for sure. Like 100%. Just write it down. It's called Making Comics, and it's by Scott McCloud. You can get it on Amazon. You can probably get a used copy. You will learn so much from that book about comics, and anybody else who's listening. That's a must-have book for understanding about comics. And he's got a whole series, Understanding Comics and stuff, but the Making Comics, for where you're at and what you're doing, and oh yes. And then there's another guy that I think you want to look into. His name is Craig Thompson, and he did a book called Blankets, graphic novel. Are you familiar with that?
I am not, but I'll make sure to write it down.
Yeah. Blankets, like the kind of thing you pull over the kind of thing you cover yourself with at night. It's called Blankets. His name is Craig Thompson, and that's another book I think like you in particular. But I think everybody should get it. But I mean, it's a great story. It's not noir, but the reason why I'm mentioning it is because on the bottom right of this particular slide, some of your more finished drawings, like of these girls' heads, the stylized nature of it is something that tells me that you would appreciate the way he's stylizing his work. And it's fun. I can't even recommend him highly enough. The book is like one of my all-time favorite graphic novels. He's so good. You really like the way he writes the story and connects with people in this story. It's definitely worth those two books. I think are something worth looking into. And Vanessa, the reason why I brought her up is my thought about noir. And maybe I'm way off on this, and if I am, just resist the urge to reach through and like smack me, reach through the monitor. I'm thinking noir has like heavy light and shade. Am I wrong about this? Are we talking about two different things?
No, that's what I'm going for the high contrast between the light and the dark, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, then another person I'm going to recommend to you for like the super high contrast is Frank Miller. Do you know his work?
No, but I feel like I should.
Yeah, you definitely should. Frank Miller did a series called Sin City. I mean, he did a lot of stuff. Like, just he's a giant in comic books. It's like it almost doesn't get bigger than him. He's definitely somebody you want to know. And he did a series called Sin City. It was made into a movie, not very good movie in my opinion, but certainly not compared with the comic books. But if you're looking at noir and heavy light and shade and style, like you will learn a tremendous amount just by flipping through his books. It's so well done. It's just impossible to overstate how good that really is. So, yeah. The story is also wild and crazy and kooky. Worth getting the entire series. I think I have it up here. You know what? Let's see. this is not going to be good. Because I know you can't see like on the monitor very well, but like, you know, heavy light and shade. Heavy light and shade. You just have to get it. Look them up on, you know, on a Google image search, Sin City, but just get the books and read it. So, because from panel to panel, wow, it will blow your mind and like electrify you. And the same with, you know, those other two books with Making Comics by Scott McCloud and Blankets. Great stuff. Your style, to me, has an innocence and sweetness that lends itself to the storytelling of Craig Thompson. But, you know, maybe there's a hidden edge in you that I'm not seeing that you'll appreciate, and you'll find that edge and that kind of element of noir in Frank Miller, and like, wow, you will love it. Do you have any questions for me?
If I recall, from when you were here last time, you did like dabble a bit in comics. What would you say is your method of like starting one? Because I always find it's like most difficult, like getting started and like doing the layouts of a comic, but then once you get into the groove, it kind of works out.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so so I do like these little cartoons that are, I wouldn't really even consider them comics, but little cartoons and stuff, you know. But I love comics, and I've read it, and it's like, you know, like I have books on making comics, and I know this stuff because like I just love it. So here's my little advice regarding that. I write things down first, in as simple a way as I can write it down, so that it's not too complicated. And I might just, and golly, it's so crazily simple. So I might write, so I write the word, then I have a little arrow, and that indicates the next panel. And then I write the next like little thing, and then I, you know, so, Collie, that's such a good question. I'm trying to think of how I've done one in the past. But I basically write down an idea, and then I just summarize the whole thing as short as I can, from beginning to end, the little idea. Oh, I know. Here's another person will be far more helpful than I'm being right now. On YouTube, there's a writer called Jenna Moresi. You're going to have to figure that out, like phonetically. Jenna Moresi, and she is really good about storytelling, and basically what she talks about is story beats. And that's what I'm talking about too, about like the organization of stuff. Because when you get to drawing it, it's basically like you're trying to get the flow of the story, but you kind of have to have your story beats. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, then that happens, boom, and it's over. And Joseph Campbell's another guy who I mentioned just before, but he talks about like a monomyth. And that's the way, it's a good way of understanding story and how stories put together. And so you can understand the story beats. And if you understand what Joseph Campbell's doing, and you can look that up on like the whole concept of the monomyth, you can even, it's been simplified and put on Wikipedia. So you can look that up and be like done with it in 15 minutes and be like, oh, that's interesting. But if you understand that, when you're watching movies, you'll have a really good idea of the way they're putting together movies. And sometimes they do it in a poor fashion and they give the movie away. and sometimes they do it in a really good fashion, in a good way, and you're like, God, that was a great movie, but it's the same story template. And that's helpful for understanding how you would like organize your comics, make your, I see what you're doing here with like you're organizing your characters. And then, you know, your characters have a little story. And if you have your story beats and you understand the monomyth, then you can say, this happens, this happens, this happens, boom, done. And it fills the complete story arc, and it sets up a template and an organization for you to work through your ideas and complete a little story and be done with it. Does that help?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great question. Thank you. Thank you. Oh man, I want to see what you're doing when you're done.
Although my first class,
And I think the pace and what you're covering is fantastic. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but you're handling it really smoothly, and this is very productive. I love the comments that students are making, the questions all of you are asking, so keep it up, everybody.
Great. Michaela, if you're there, can you tell me a little bit?
We have Michaela here. She's coming up to the thing.
Hello.
Hi, Michaela. Some great drawings you have here. Very powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, they're good stuff. I like your line quality and what you're doing, and it looks like some stuff is either Photoshop or Procreate, and then you have your own sketchbook stuff. Talk to me. Talk to me.
So I wind up not using any of these compositions, by the way, but these were just some of my original ideas. I'm redoing a piece that it was my first ever piece I did in freshman year in school. So I'm redoing it now to see how much I've progressed since then. And basically, I work digitally. So I'm doing my composition sketches, value, and color all digital. But like my notes and concept sketching, I'm doing in my sketchbook. And then like I'll print out the digital stuff and post it in later. But yeah.
Yeah. This is very powerful. It's very it's your current. I mean, that's what a lot of people are doing today, like concept stuff. And so, tell me about your idea. Like this looks like almost like superhero stuff.
So this is going to be a lot of me describing things that aren't on the screen because my idea changed a lot. If that's okay.
Yeah, whatever. Just tell me more.
So these three dudes, they're supposed to look like intimidating and kind of shady, and I didn't like detail their faces or anything in the composition sketches, but the composition I wind up going for is a bird's eye view of them kind of close to a building, and one's leaning against it. And there's all these wanted posters of them behind them, and the one guy's like ripping them down and he's stomping on one of them. So that's what I have now, very different from what's on the screen. But
oh, this is cool. And is this part of a comic book, or it's one image, or
it's one image, but they're from like a story I have because I write. So
yeah, I can see you have a lot of writing like on the top, and I don't know if that's part of a story or if they're notes, but writing is good. Like it really helps flush out ideas, and you have such a nice combination of a whole bunch of notes, and that makes, at least for me, right on the outside, and like I've never seen anything that you've done before. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking like, okay, this person is a thinking person. She's got a lot of ideas and is trying to work through them and organize them. And then you're just using your sketchbook in a way that makes a lot of sense to me at any rate. And then you're using like the computer and then, the digital stuff. All right, I have a question for you. Are you doing any 3D stuff at all?
Yeah, actually. I have this like 3D program that I use for especially when I'm doing strong perspective.
Uh-huh.
And I look at the planes and stuff on it, and kind of I'm able to make vague block shapes too for buildings. So I use that, yeah.
And okay, cool. I'm sorry. What I don't know if you just mentioned what's the program?
I don't remember the name, but it was free. So, and it works really well for free.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to recommend a program for you too that is free, and so yay for that, right? Like that works in your favor. It's called Blender. That's a great program. It's very, very powerful. You can, since you're working digitally, you just may love this. It's going to take you like, a little while just to, like any other software, just to understand where the buttons and the, switches are and stuff to get done what you want to get done. But there's a million tutorials on YouTube. Blender is so cool, and you can look up Blender short animations and see what they've done with it. You can do stuff from cartoons to like full out crazy sci-fi, like whatever, in the most detailed movie quality stuff that you can imagine. It's super powerful, from cartoon to like hyper realistic. In any case, what's there too is they have this thing that they call grease pencil, and that's worth looking into, because I think like you'll be able to take that whole thing that you're doing with the perspective, and then like use the grease pencil in the program, and it's free, and like you'll like it. It's good. Look into it. Blender.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah. Just look into it. You'll like it a lot.
Okay.
Do you have any questions for me?
Not really. I don't think so.
Cool. Yeah, I think you're doing cool stuff. I think look up some Blender stuff, and you'll be pretty darn happy that you did. And look up the grease pencil and how that relates. And I think you'll be able to combine everything you're doing like that. And fun stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Gianna, this is fun. Tell me what's going on here.
Are you okay? You comfortable with it? You jump in? Okay. Jumping in.
Hello.
Hi, Gianna. Thanks for being comfortable enough to tell me about your stuff. I like this a lot.
Yes. So these three like images are kind of like separate things, but they're all essentially a part of my AP theme this year, which is kind of me exploring my Italian heritage and like cultural values. So to the left, I was kind of just experimenting with a lot of reference photos I took in terms of like my family and my Italian heritage. And I ended up in the middle image settling with this image I took of my grandmother and my grandfather in the back, and kind of just a space in like my house where my family is kind of just enjoying each other's company. And yeah, and then to the right, this is based off of a festival that happens in Italy called Ferragosto. And it's like a mountain festival where everybody kind of goes up to the mountains and like has a barbecue. So I wanted to kind of portray that, how my family kind of, enjoys each other's company in nature and with food and everything. So yeah.
Yeah. I really like what you're doing a lot here. The idea of exploring like your Italian heritage and your family history and that kind of thing. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what appeals to you about that? And I like that whole idea. I really like that. Oh, look at this. This is
that's more in detail.
Yeah.
So
okay, go ahead.
I think essentially just for this series, I really family is really important to like Italian heritage, like as for any other culture, I'm sure. And I think just in this series, I really like capturing how my family just interacts with each other, interacts with food, and just everyday like festivities and everything. So I think just those little interactions and gestures and how everybody interacts with one another, I think was really important to me. And it helps kind of symbolize what family is about and everything. So
yeah. So I'm going to mention an artist, and maybe you know him, maybe you don't. If you don't, then like you'll touch on something that will like open up a whole world to you. Soroya?
I don't think I know that name.
Okay. S, where is it here? Oh man. Sorolla. Okay, and Soroya is do you know the artist John Singer Sargent?
Yes.
Okay, so Soroya is the Spanish Sargent, and that's what he's sort of known as, and then Andras Zorn would be like the Swedish version of Sargent, and Andras Zorn is worked a little bit. A lot more. Sargent worked exclusively from life. Andras Zorn did life and photographs. And Soroya, well, it's hard to tell, but I'm thinking he also used photographs, but there are photographs of him on the beach painting. But the reason why I mentioned Soroya is because he wanted to capture something about the Hispanic history and heritage. And so like what you're doing here immediately sort of reminded me of Soroya and what Soroya was doing. And he would travel around the country, and what was bothersome to him at the time was that as we moved historically in a trajectory through time into the modern age, like the thing that where all of us are wearing t-shirts and jeans and that kind of thing, and he lived like 100 years ago or so, maybe a little bit more, but maybe a little less, anyhow, roughly about 100 years. Everybody was experiencing this kind of homogenization of their cultures and blending into like one look, and now it's more so like that than ever before. But so he traveled around and captured, and sometimes would bring kind of historical costumes and have them dress up in an effort to capture the Spanish heritage and family life and what it was like to be. And so what you're doing with like, this whole project of your appreciation for Italian heritage, I think you might get something out of seeing his paintings, and also the authenticity, like the same thing that you're expressing about the way you're witnessing people, the way they really act and move and look and turn, and the kind of poetry of their gesture in real life. He captured that as well. That's the whole beauty of looking at life, and I think you get a lot out of looking at some of Soroya's stuff, because it's also let's assume, this is going to be blasphemy, but let's assume that he was doing it from photographs. I have a feeling he did a lot from life. But the thing is, when you look at the paintings, they don't look like they were done from photographs. They look like they were done, they just look so spontaneous and wonderful and beautiful, and the color is amazing. And it just feels so right. And there are a couple of paintings of his at the Met with his family, and they're like in the water splashing about. And again, I'm going to repeat a little something that I said prior. When you're looking at his stuff, try and think about what's going on historically in art history and why he's painting the way he's painting, because it's not academic painting. Definitely not. It's a very, very different thing than what came previously, and it's not French Impressionism, and it's not even Sargent. You know, even though he's called the Spanish, or he's thought of as the Spanish Sargent, he's doing his own thing, and you're doing your own thing. Anyhow, I think like you'd get something out of seeing what he's done, and it's worth picking up a. Well, you can look at a lot of the things online, but you know, it's worth getting a book at the library, and you know, or just ordering one and going through it page for page, and then seeing how you can, you know, you how in simpatico you are with him and what you can get out of that. All that blabber aside, do you have any questions for me?
I'm not totally sure. I think in the process of just making art, I always find myself just like hating the like midway product, and then end up like loving it at the end. Do you have any like suggestions? I do that all the time because like you're your own critic, but do you have any suggestions on kind of learning to trust the process and, you know?
Yeah, okay, that's great. That's really, you know, I'm so sorry, like, to everybody. I should really just start and like not blabble away, but I should start by asking like what your question is, because these are great questions. So I appreciate you all. Like, yeah. So I'm going to tell you what my father told me, and I was really, really young, and I don't mean it as an insult, like, to you at all. I was like actually much younger than you, and so I would have that same experience, and I would draw for a while, and then like almost invariable, I'd end up in the same place that you're describing. 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, I'd be like, this is looking dreadful. And I'd just get frustrated, and I'd kick up a storm. And so my father's an artist. He'd be in the other room, and he would just, you know, yell from the other room, like, settle down in there. He didn't say it so nicely, but that's basically probably used the, you know, he wasn't one to like pepper his language with curse words or expletives of any nature, but he could be a little bit forceful. In any case, you know, basically just settle down. And what he told me, which is what I'll share with you, which really helped, is you don't know where you're going until you get there. So, you know, it's no use getting all bent out of shape and being critical until you're finished with it, and then you can look at what you have. So I mean, he told that to me when I was very young, but I'm going to add to that now by saying none of us are perfect, and we all mess up. And I have another teacher who said to me, you're always going to be bad. He said it in a different way. Basically, he said, you're always going to suck, but you'll just suck at a higher level. And the meaning behind that is I found this to be the case, and it's a good thing. You draw better now than you did, like, I don't know what, 5 years ago, probably, eh? Yeah, and you know, 5 years ago you drew better than you did like 5 years previously. So you're going to get better. The more effort you put into it, you will just incrementally get better. If you draw, the fun thing about drawing and painting is you get better incrementally. And so the carrot's always held out in front of you. If you draw today, you will gain an inch. If you draw tomorrow, you'll, you know, gain another inch. And you're climbing up a mountain of you know, where people like Michelangelo and Leonardo and Sargent and, you know, Sorolla and these people that are giants in the field have, you know, climbed up this mountain. And so, you know, you'll climb 1 inch at a day, and maybe you'll be able to get somewhere and do something. But you want to be happy with the thought that you're not good enough is your brain being ahead of what your hand can do. The carrot's always going to be held out in front of you. You will never reach a place that you're like, yeah, and you actually don't want to reach a place that you feel so confident about what you're doing, because then you're kind of not really trying hard enough. You know, you're like, if you're like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, I can, you know, this is really easy, it's as easy as handwriting, you're not actually trying hard enough. Like what you're doing here on this page that I see by trying to compose a whole bunch of people, you should be right at the edge of your abilities, and afraid that you're just going to mess the whole thing up because you're just not good enough. And that's good. That's really good. And so your brain will have ideas that you're not sure that your hand could actually pull off yet. Your skill level might not be there yet. And that's a good place to be. So that will push you forward, and you'll gain an inch, and you'll gain another inch. And, you know, if you're 1% better every day, you know, in a year, you're like 365% better. And in 5 years, you are completely unrecognizable. And that's there's no telling where you're going to go with that kind of acceptance of the fact that, like, you're going to gain, you know, 1%. Just be 1% better today than you were yesterday, and be diligent about it. And that's sort of a good way of, you know, if you don't like what you're doing, smile, because, you know, and dive in harder. Let the brain do what it's supposed to do. The brain is supposed to sew up neurological connections by repeated impresses. So you're like, oh, I'm not good at this. Well, great. Your brain is recognizing you're not good at something. Go to work at it. And be happy that you can't see, you know, be happy that you can see that you're not good enough yet. And so you see all sorts of problems. Fantastic. You know, make a list of, like, this needs to be worked on, that needs to be worked on, that needs to be worked on, and go to work at it. It's a fun thing. It's a bad thing if it's going to be really bad if you get to a place where you're like, I'm so good, I don't even know what else I have to do.
Yeah.
It's going to be
definitely.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Gianna?
I don't think so. That was really helpful, though. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Jameson, am I saying your name right?
Yes.
Great. Tell me, this is super cool. It's so neat and organized, and it's like, tell me something. What am I looking at? This is really cool.
Thank you. So I wanted to do an interior design type piece. And so this piece is like from the perspective of like laying in bed looking out. And so I wanted to just capture just like a very minimal space of just like the perspective of looking out from a bed. So I wanted to put that into my sketches, and that's what I hoped for in my final.
Yeah. These are interesting. I like the way you're I like the way you're organizing things. I like your black and white, and I like your color, and you have a real strong sense of graphic design. Is that something that you're consciously going for, the way you're breaking up the space, and the way you're breaking up the page, and organizing things? It's really clear in my mind that graphic design is strong point of the way your mind is organized. Is that conscious on your side?
I would have never thought of that.
Oh, how interesting. Okay. That's something you might want to explore a little bit further. Graphic design is like okay, so here's one way of thinking about something. You're doing something naturally. You're just the way you're naturally organizing your page. You have these little thumbnails and and then this one on the left, but the way each one is broken up with shapes that break up the rectangle. So basically, the rectangle of the page is a shape. It's a rectangle shape, right? Mm-hmm. And the way you're dividing up that rectangle, most people don't do that naturally. They have to be taught to do what you're doing, and you're just doing it naturally. And that's basically what graphic design is. So, it's logos and that kind of thing. If you think about I don't know, type organization, maybe you don't want to do that, but it's kind of coming to you so naturally the way you're organizing things. It just might be an idea to look into it a little bit. Maybe you'll like it, maybe you'll think it's not your thing, and but tell me more. Well, let me stop there. Do you have any questions for me?
I do not.
Okay, fair enough. I think what you're doing is really cool, and that's my like 2 cents to give you. There's a guy named Milton Glaser, and he did the I Love New York. I don't know, I Heart New York kind of thing that's like super duper famous. And then you see like I Heart whatever all over the place that was kind of derivative from that. Graphic design is super powerful, and it has an impact on people. And you might like his stuff, but in any case, I think you should take a little look at that and learn more about it. You're doing it naturally.
Okay.
So, great, thank you. Amber. Oh yeah. Talk to me, Amber. Tell me something. This is great stuff.
Amber is here. One sec. Thank you, Amber.
Hi. So this is a bunch of concept work for a very long story I have, and I am working on a pilot for it right now. I'd like to make it into either a comic or like a cartoon. Probably a pilot. I mean, a comic or a cartoon, or I'm storyboarding it out right now. But I don't want to go into detail about like the lore because really that doesn't matter right now. But yeah, that's what this is.
Yeah. So let me ask you what I asked. I can't remember her name, but Scott McCloud making comics. Do you know that?
I've heard of him before. I think I've actually looked at a PDF of his book, if I recall. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're definitely far along, and I'm super impressed. Like you can draw. You can draw, and you're doing stuff, and you can. Looks like you're, golly, it's really impressive. I cannot wait to see what you do when it's done. If you remember, or if Roger remembers, like I like that you have this grand scope and that you're writing everything out and working out thumbnails, and this is really the way to do it. Like it's very impressive. You can see your little perspective things like on the left here, and then your notes and your designs, and it's good stuff. Your cities, your environment sketches. This is great. And so then, have you gotten everything together, and so that you've actually started on the finished work?
For AP art, I've been just making like my whole series. It's concept art, so I do have a bunch of concept art pieces. They're more like illustrations than like concept art, but they have to be a bit more cleaned up for AP. But I sketch a lot. Like, I was actually really happy when you presented, just because usually I don't see artists who sketch as much as me. Like, I sketch too much. Like, I have so many sketchbooks, and I'm only 17. Like, I have a whole bookshelf filled already, and so I have a lot of concepts and stuff, and I have started working on the pilot finally of like the first episode.
So I think you're doing the right thing, and yeah, you're right. There people don't draw as much as maybe you and I, and that's okay. They're off to doing their own thing. But my thought on that is, here's a little weird thought on the side. I think that the world is moving more and more towards pushing us to a place where we'll need to be presenting entertainment. And you can already see that, like, you know, there's YouTube, and then there's Amazon Prime, and then there's Netflix, and, you know, it's like other Hulu and whatever, you know, so, and comic books, and, you know, and concept design and stories, that's just a part of like the future. So I just think you have a nice bright future ahead of you, and if you like drawing as much as it clearly looks like you do, I think you're just doing good stuff. What kind of stories do you like?
I like comedy probably the most, but I also like action and adventure and fantasy, romance too. So I do like a lot of genres, also like psychological thriller.
How cool. Wow, you're so cool. My God. I wish we could be on the call longer, because Nicole and I get some recommendations from you. Like, okay, I'm just going to take 2 extra seconds. Tell me some comic books that you like, or some graphic novels. Like what do you and some movies. Like, what are you following? What do you recommend? Because you're clearly doing a lot here, and you've been looking at a lot. So what do you recommend?
I mean, I've read a lot of webcomics in the past, but I've watched more animations. I'm trying to think. Some of my favorite movies, I guess, that inspire me the most would be, they're all animations, since I'm very interested in the entertainment industry. But Meet the Robinsons, I think Megamind is just, I think it's really underrated. I think it's really good and very funny, and the plot is actually really good, even though it's very underrated.
Wait, which one's underrated?
Megamind, it's a movie. I don't know if you've watched it, but I think it's...
I've never heard of it. I'm so thrilled. Go ahead.
What else? What are some other movies? Trying to go off my head from like concept art books I have. I really can't think of...
That's okay.
But okay. I do want to add on to how the world is moving towards more finished stuff. When I was younger, I literally never made finished art because I just thought it was a waste of time. Because I thought I could improve faster by just focusing on the core things that I need to improve on. Like, oh, I don't know how to draw this neck. If I just make one finished piece of a neck, that's wasting time just like doing all these details and stuff. So that's how I always looked at it. Now, well, the reason I make finished pieces, one of the reasons is so people, normal, like more average people, or people who just like make finished art would like more respect me, I guess, because sometimes people look at sketches, and if you don't really sketch, it's just kind of like, doesn't really show much skill. But I also do it just to push myself, because I didn't think about this before, but now I feel like there's just so many parts, like coloring and color theory, and like just finishing something it's a whole different skill set and takes patience. So that's another thing. Sorry, I'm a bit rambling.
No, actually, I'm so thrilled that you're talking. So I have a couple of things to say about that stuff, because I really like what you're doing. So here's a way of sort of thinking about finished versus sketches. There are 2 different types of engagement with story for viewers. Let's think about like comics or even comic strips, right? and Scott McCloud talks about this in his Making Comics, and it's a good way to think about things, I think. If you have a comic book and the finish on each panel is like really rendered and very realistic, and there's lots of detail in there, and it's like blowing your mind. The artwork is like you're like, holy cow, how much time did this guy take to like do this, or this person, whatever. It's super impressive. It actually stops the story flow because the artwork gets in the way of the story. And then, you know, if the artwork's a little bit more simple, the more simple it is, the more universal it becomes. So that's why I say, for example, emoticons, right? Like a smiley face or a heart or whatever. Everybody knows what that means. Like you could just send it. It's like, bam, it's simple, it's universal. But if you send a face that's realistic of somebody, it's like, who's that? And like, why are they smiling? What's about? And it gets in the way of the universal. So I think that you're onto something when you're thinking about that. You know, the difference between sketches and storytelling and finishes, the finish and color theory and all that stuff might be great for painting that is a finished one-off type of image that's going to hang on a wall or in a museum or wherever it's going to be, and that's telling a story. But maybe like what you're doing with concepts and comic books, I think your mind is probably set up properly to understand that the flow of the story, I don't know what story you're telling, but it's massive. It sounds like it's got to move quickly. It can't just be bogged down by like the little details of stuff. Oh man, there's a guy that I'm thinking of, Pedrosa. I don't know where his book is immediately, but he's an animated. He's a guy who worked in animation. Cyril, that's his name. Cyril Pedrosa. Cyril Pedrosa. That's a guy like worth looking up. So he worked in animation, and then he also did like a couple of graphic novels that are fun. They're really good. There's some, he colors them in, changes the color palette like you would see in an animated film, and the story is it's a little quirky. It's a little more like a slice of life. It's not sci-fi fantasy or anything, but his drawing and the stylization it's fun. It's animated. Okay, then since you like animation, I have an animation that I'm going to recommend to you since you recommended something to me, and it's called Tekon Kincrete. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't.
Okay, here's the spelling, something close to it anyhow. Tekkonkrite. EET. Okay, that's so good. It's one of these things. It's have you ever heard of Akira?
It sounds familiar. Oh
my god. If I could reach through the monitor and like grab your shoulders and shake you. Okay, Akira. Let me just make sure. Akrika. Okay, those are two movies that are phenomenal. They're massive in scope and so well done, like art-wise. It will just blow your mind. There are hours of pleasure ahead of you, and it's not just that the artwork is done phenomenally, which it is. It's the story is also like psychological and vast in scope, and it's not just dumb entertainment. It's good stuff. All right, Amber. Do you have anything else? Because I'm so sorry. I want to speak to you forever. You're all so cool.
It's okay. I just wanted to add on. Yeah, I really love films that like use really nice color keys, and it's always fun to pay attention to films, like how the composition, I mean, not the composition, the music is changing and honing in on that, or the colors, and seeing how it, trying to predict what's going to happen next through that. I don't know, I think that's always kind of fun to do. I'll definitely check them out. I wrote them down.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
The questions I had, I was going to ask if you know any animators or like people that work in the animation industry or the game industry, and you pretty much answered that. So
yeah. Oh, well, you know what? Are you familiar with the website ArtStation?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, that's going to answer like 1,000 more questions than I'm going to answer in 2 seconds. But yeah, ArtStation's like pretty badass. Holy cow.
I'm always, there's so much to learn on the internet. Like I am not kidding, like 100 PDFs of like books for like learning art and like, or like animation stuff. And they're like textbooks that you get for college, and they're like all online and PDFs and stuff. And it's very fun to learn, just teach yourself. I like that method a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Also, you know, animated stuff, I mean, I'm going to say this and you'll be like, yeah, I just forgot. Hayao Miyazaki, Spirited Away.
Oh, yeah. I like Howl's Castle a lot. That's a big inspiration of mine. It's just, their stuff is so magical. And I love, unlike a lot of Western films, they kind of leave the ending open-ended, and they treat the audience much more mature, which I really like. So
yeah. Oh, I have somebody else here. Okay, I have something for you that you've never heard of before. This is great. Mushishi. Mushishi. That's Japanese. It was 10 book series that you can pick up, but it was made into an animated thing. It's also like, it's just fantastic. It's like hard to overstate how great it is. So, you know,
I'll definitely look into these. I'm excited to look at them.
Oh yeah, you have so many hours. Oh man, thanks for recommending Megamind to me too. This has been fun. Thanks. All right, Emma, this is funny. This is fun stuff. Tell me about it.
Hello. So this is also concept art for a comic. And it's about like a band, and they're like a band of monsters. And yeah, so I was kind of going for like, well, what my focus is like how characters, like how you can like tell a character's story like through shapes and like through their character designs and their environment. So yeah, that's kind of what I was going for.
Oh, that's cool. And tell me what comic books or what artists, or I probably don't, maybe hopefully I know the artist, but tell me what.
Well, I also oh, this is kind of hard. I do really like Avatar. And I'm like blanking right now.
That's totally cool. Me too.
I can't really think of anything right now. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I like what you're doing. All right, so here. Well, let me ask before I start, you know, blabbing away about what I think. I like this thing in the corner. That's really cool. Like what you've done with the color and the, you know, the finish on that. Are you thinking like with your comic book that every panel would be like finished in this way? It's really cool. I like it. I'm just wondering, like.
Thank you. Well, actually, no, I just kind of wanted to like. This is me experimenting with like rendering and stuff. That's not like the finished one, but yeah. So oh, I figured out an artist. Boro Dante on YouTube is one of my favorite people. And also just Disney. Disney shows in general are so good. Yeah. So what was the question again? I'm sorry.
I was asking. I was wondering if, like, you know, the one that Roger just made bigger here, like the color one.
Yeah.
If your comic book will is it going to be black and white? Is it going to be in color? Is the finish on each of the panels, like from page to page, going to be like finished like this? Like, I was just kind of wondering that you know, where you're going, because like this is a cool style.
Yeah, so I was thinking of like having, I've actually made the comic, but I'm going to be redoing it. So this is me experimenting with like different styles and like what happens if I don't have lines or like stuff like that. I'm thinking that it's going to be somewhat similar to this, but obviously not as like finished as I have been making my art. This is just like a work in progress picture, but like I've been like doing like rendering and then adding like lines like here and there to like emphasize certain parts and stuff like that. And that's what I'm kind of going to try to go for in my comic as well. And it's going to be in color.
Yeah, I like this. I think you should do it. Like I'm glad that this finished color piece is up here, because it relates for me, like it helps me relate to the sketches that you've done, like that are on the left-hand side. And I'm 100% sure that there's like a whole bunch, there's a whole ocean of stuff that I'm not seeing. I'm just seeing like just the tippy top of like, you know, thousands of pages worth of work. Yeah, I look forward to seeing what you do with it. It's cool stuff. It looks to me too like you're also someone who appreciates like animation and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I definitely like a lot of animation and stuff.
Yeah, cool. Do you have any recommendations for me, like any animated, like what are some of your favorite animated films? And
I really like the new Disney princess movie. I forget what it's called. Like the dragon one. It's like I don't remember exactly what it's called, but the new dragon like princess movie that they got going on is like super cool. And I got the concept like I got the book of like their concept art and stuff, and it's really cool to like see like their character development and stuff like that with like the main character. Yeah, right, the dragon, Raya's dragon or whatever it is.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know about that one, so I'll have to look that up. Yeah, this is so cool. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Pen and ink. Melanie, this is wonderful stuff. Darn it. I'm so sorry. We have like 3 minutes left. Tell me in 30 seconds, and I'll try and answer in 30 seconds what's going on.
Hello, sorry. I'm in person, so I was just making my way to the microphone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. These are miscellaneous. They're really recent. They're done in 2 different class periods when we just have like a free like check your email draw time. And the first 2 were just for fun, like what I like to do. And the first one is from life. The second one is not. And the third one is just nose practice because I hate drawing noses. And I felt like I wanted to get good enough to enjoy drawing them. And that's it.
Melanie, I love what you're doing. You're drawing from life. You're drawing like the noses. Like you really have some serious skill. You're really, really good.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry that like I've talked so long and I've not paced things as well as I should have, because I'd love to speak to you more. You know, this is good stuff. I'm only going to say keep doing and do a lot of it. It's great. Like, I'm just going to apologize that I can't say more than that, because I really like what you're doing a lot. It's great.
Thank you so much. And don't worry about it. You basically rattled off like 3 of my favorite movies as you were speaking. So I'm
good.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm so sorry, because we're going to get cut off in like 1 minute and 30 seconds. So maybe we have to jump to the next person. But you can email me, or any of you, you know, if you want to email me or whatever, like that's fine too.
Okay, got it. All right.
Okay.
Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. And Bryn, is this the last one, Roger?
Yes, Bryn's last up, and
Bryn,
she has 2 spots here.
Okay, I cannot believe we've made it to the end. Tell me, Bryn, what do we have here?
So there's 2 slides.
because I've took a lot of pictures. But this this is like I'm doing another personal series, which is Achilles throwing a spear. The mini version that I did isn't very good because I just wanted to see how I was going to use the watercolor.
Mm-hmm.
And the ear is just ear notes for class because we're doing an ear clay project. Well, we already did the ear clay project.
Okay. Okay.
And in the first slide, was a project that I did before, where it was a still life, but I wanted to add a fun twist to it, so I did it in watercolor and I outlined everything in pen and ink.
Good. So I like what you're doing. I'm sorry we have like 30 seconds left. My 2 cents to you is keep experimenting. Draw a lot more and keep experimenting. Like, your ideas for experimentation are good. Do more. Do more. Like, you have it in its raw state. I'd like to see, who cares what I'd like, but I think it would be helpful to you and you'd get a lot out of it if you just did more. You'd see improvement. That brain of yours is working very well to come up with different little ideas. Color, the way you're just playing with color and putting outline around stuff, and it's good stuff. So, all right, I've gone a minute over. Sorry. Thank you all.
Thanks so much, Dorian, for spending the morning with us again. Love hearing your insights, and I'm hearing more conversation from many of my students than I've heard in the last few years. So you've excited so much interest for us, and we really appreciate that. So thanks again.
Oh, it's my pleasure.